That was an excerpt from Leocadia Kasparova's Au sein de la nature, which means in the midst of nature, and it was played by the American pianist Sarah Cahill. I'm Erica Worth, and welcome to this Pianist Podcast. Today I'm catching up with Sarah to talk about her upcoming recital at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, which takes place on the 8th of March as part of the International Women's Day celebrations. Sarah, it's so lovely to speak to you at long last. I feel I know you because I've done so much research on you. But what I'm here today, so I'm keen to hear about your upcoming recital, The Futurist Female, at the Metropolitan Museum on the 8th of March, which is International Women's Day. Can you tell us what's in store?
Yes, thank you so much, Erica, and it's wonderful to be on your podcast. I've admired your work for a long time. The Futurist Female is a kind of immersion in music composed by women, starting in 1687 with Elizabeth Jacquet de la Guerre, with composers from around the world, and it will be in a beautiful sacred art gallery at the Metropolitan Museum. Listeners can come and go during the 6 hours. It's noon to 6 p.m.
That sounds amazing. How many people can they get in there at one given moment?
I don't know. I'm imagining the gallery maybe 30, maybe. I think there will be some chairs set up and
30.
something like, I mean, people will come and go during the time.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But you'll be playing for 6 hours straight.
Yes.
My goodness, that's a lot of hours. How do you think, I mean, how are you going to prepare for that? That's 6 hours. You need mental and physical stamina there. Doesn't that worry you at all?
It's something that I've done before on each International Women's Day, one in the past several years at the Barbican, at the Berkeley Art Museum, and at the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. And I've done this before, and this is music I really love playing, so it's exhilarating rather than tiring, I think. And I take short breaks of 10 minutes or so and have water and some snacks and fruit. And so I plan each hour or each sort of 50 minutes as a concert in itself. So it's balanced in terms of style and era and tempo. And so it's almost like playing 6 concerts, and I love doing this, and somehow it's not tiring. And at the end of the time, I feel like playing more. I think it's strange. I mean, it's an odd idea, and it's strange in a way because we're used to perfecting a certain number of pieces and playing only those. And like, how can you play a lot of music well? But this is, I mean, it's music I've played for many, many years, and in some cases, for 30 years or 20 years. Yeah. So I feel good about it. And
will you be introducing the music? Because a lot of these composers would be totally unknown to the audience.
Yes, and I usually introduce them in groups so that so as not to keep breaking up the music with talking. So some of them are short, some of them are long. They're different lengths. So some of them I will definitely introduce. But
that's fantastic. And of course, they're all women on International Women's Day. Don't you think, though, that today the classical music world is acknowledging female composers, female conductors, and so on a bit more than they have in recent years?
Yes, and I feel like we're making progress, as you say, and it's wonderful to hear in concerts, Kaya Sariaho or Tanya Leon or Clara Schumann, who are being played more. But I think most pianists, I don't know if you would agree, but I think most pianists, including young pianists, really stick with the classical canon. And I think there's a tendency to stick with what's safe and what's known. So when I talk to students entering competitions, I suggest, for instance, that instead of the same kind of schlocky, I think often mediocre 20th century competition pieces, they
Yes.
try Gabriela Ortiz's Etude Number 3, which is such a dazzling virtuoso showpiece. But
Wow.
I mean that would be a fantastic piece for a young pianist to enter a competition with. But I think that the tendency is like others haven't done this before, so why should I be the first one? Um,
Mm.
I think it takes a long time for things to change. So, for instance,
Yes.
um, John Adams wrote the speech China Gates for me when I was
I know.
17, and that took years for pianists to play. Um, and for a long
Now
time,
it's well known. Yeah.
yes, and so it was Kolodenko, I think, who started
Oh,
his. Was it the? I'm sorry. Was it the? It wasn't the Van Cliburn competition. It was.
it was, I think. I think he
He
won.
won, and he won the competition, and he started his set with that piece. And
Okay.
I mean, that's amazing to see how things change over the course
Yes.
of the course of decades.
Yes.
But I think
Oh,
with
of course.
music by women, like it's amazing that Claire Hammond has recorded all the Mangeroux etudes, and
Absolutely.
that's a beautiful recording. That's a beautiful recording. But
Absolutely.
I wish young pianists would play those. Would sort of I wish they'd enter the repertoire more, and that
Yes.
instead of the usual Chopin. I mean, the Chopin etudes are great. The Debussy etudes are great, but why not the Louise Franck etudes? Why not the Grazina
Yeah.
Bacelis etudes? Why not, you
It's
know, the
amazing.
Mangeroux etudes? I mean, those are
The
such great
Mongeru is
pieces.
beautiful. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Mongeru is
yeah. And that's
gorgeous.
a wonderful, I mean, that's what we need is great recordings of this work.
And we
And
need the right champions, of course. I mean, you are obviously one of them, but we need people out there to really champion them. Like you said, Kolodenko with John
yeah,
Adams,
yes.
Claire with Mongeroux. We need people to get out there and
Yeah,
challenge.
and not to call out particular pianists, but what if Yu Wang and Lang Lang and you know the pianists who have a lot of clout these days, and there are many of them. I mean, what if
Yes.
a touring pianist put just one piece by a woman on their repertoire? And as you say, it's happening more. But I feel
Yeah.
that we need. I mean,
I
that
think you're right. I think you're
it
right.
shouldn't just be a token thing. It shouldn't be like, oh, I need to do some
I
DEI
know.
thing. Same with composers of color. I mean, that
Yeah.
it should be really believing so strongly in the music that
Yes.
you want to get it out there, and it's like
Yeah.
something I believe in musically.
Of course, and it shouldn't just be women playing women's music, which is
Right,
that
right.
token thing, should it? It should, as you say, Lang Lang should be getting out there and playing Mongeroux, or
Yes,
as you say,
yes.
the very virtuosic. I'm sure the etudes that you were talking about, he'd be brilliant at. Um,
Exactly. And
yeah,
then the younger pianists who look at what the famous because they want a career like that. And
yeah,
so that's what they want is to be, Yu Wang traveling the world. And
yes.
if they see her playing music by women, then they're going to start doing it too.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's so interesting because some of the pieces I've heard on your albums, for example, Fanny Charles Dillon. Never heard of her. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing her name
Yes.
correctly.
Yeah.
Um, wow. I mean, she was
Yeah.
romantic composer. Romantic.
Well, she was beginning of the 20th century, and
Yeah.
the interesting thing about that is number one, she notated birdsong. She has four bird songs that are sort of interacting with each other, and she notated birdsong, and this was years and years before Olivier
Amy
Messiaen
Beach.
and
Yeah.
composers. And then the other thing is that she this the score is published and it says encores played by Joseph Hoffman. So
Whoa.
the great pianist Joseph Hoffman recorded this piece, Birds at Dawn.
Yeah. Oh, let's look.
Birds at Dawn. Yeah, Birds at Dawn. So 1917. So Joseph Hoffman, the great, one of the great pianists of all time,
Yes.
Joseph Hoffman recorded this piece And then you think, well, why didn't that enter the repertoire? So I think that's fascinating. I mean, he played it as an encore piece. So yeah.
Strange, isn't it? But some composers, female composers, are getting their names out there, like Mel Boni, who is wonderful. I mean, even
Yes.
myself, I'd say 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, I wouldn't have known any Mel. Is it Boni or Bonis? I can never get it right. But
Yes.
I wouldn't have
Boni. Yeah.
known her music. Isn't it interesting?
Yes. Yeah. It's really fascinating, and I think the work is slow, but
Yes.
it's happening.
Yes.
And again, some really good recordings and hearing people in concert. And I mean, this is why, like, even in at the Metropolitan Museum, even if one young person contacts me, and this happens fairly often, that I
Hmm.
get contacted, someone says, I love that,
Yeah.
piece by Zenobia Powell Perry, where can I get the score? Or I love that Teresa Wong piece, where can I get the score? Or something that
Absolutely.
and that's what makes a big difference. And then
Yes.
they, put it on a
Yes.
student recital, or
Yeah.
they play it in a concert, and then the
Yes.
work gets out there.
Yes. Well, you've
So
given me some great ideas for my magazine for sheet music. I mean, you really have. I'm gonna
okay.
De la Guerre, the composer
Yes.
De la
Yes.
Guerre, beautiful Baroque music.
Yes.
Uh, uh,
Yes.
and again, Taillefer, Germaine Taillefer, that Molto Perpetuum piece, amazing.
It's
Pieces I
really
didn't
amazing.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I mean, what also makes a difference is websites like IMSLP,
Sure.
which, that music is disseminated so much easier these
Yes.
days than it used to be, so that the resources are out there, and
Yes.
you don't have to go to the
Yes.
library or try to find, the Library of Congress and try to find the scores by these composers. So
Absolutely.
that's
But
important too.
it's great to listen to them first, like with
Yes.
you. Google
Yes.
you on YouTube, and then you see all these female composers you've never heard of, which is just fascinating. Um,
Yes.
so I've,
And
yeah.
yeah, and often they just need one advocate. Like, I know you've published Leocadia Kashparova,
Yes.
and that and she's only really known because of Graham Griffiths, right? I mean,
Okay.
one person who went back um, and found the music and published it, and makes a
Wow.
really beautiful edition. And so
Okay.
he did all the work and sort of uncovering her.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how I found that one piece. I think I've only had one piece by Cash Perova in the magazine, but maybe I think is it quite virtuosic? It's quite tricky.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
is. She was. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, goodness, we are going all over the place here. But I know you've played all over the world, including the Barbican, as you said, with this similar program. But
Mhm.
this will be your first appearance at the Met Museum. How does that feel? Have you done a run through? Are you allowed to do any run throughs?
Um, no, but I went to the gallery and sort of, soaked it all in. And um, I yeah, I love being in a gallery rather than, they have an auditorium where they often have concerts at the Met.
Okay.
But for this project, I love the idea of people walking around and stopping and listening
Yeah.
and sort of encountering, like, maybe someone walking through the galleries and hearing something and then coming into the room and learning
Beautiful.
about some music that they might not at all be a classical music person. And
Yes.
I love that, rather than being in an auditorium that's very formal and it's just sort of me on stage. And
Yes.
that's less. But I mean, of course, the Metropolitan Museum, what can be better? What can be better?
And obviously, not all of us can get there. If I was in New York, I'd be coming along for sure. But do you know if it's going to be recorded or if it's going to be streamed or anything? Will anybody, any idea if anybody can
I,
tune in later?
I don't know if it will be streamed. I don't know, but
No.
it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be great.
Great.
And some of the, I'm always learning new works, and so actually the Melbourne
Yes.
piece is new to me, and there are
Wow.
the Mariana Martinez. There are three sort of big classical sonatas on this program, and that I love the idea of sort of big substantial works by Mongeroux and
Okay.
Mariana Martinez and
Okay.
Anne Bon, and
Okay.
three composers in the classical era, and
Yeah.
I love those sort of
Yeah.
big
Have
work.
you heard of Agatha Backer-Grandal?
Yes, yes, but I don't know enough of her work. It's just wonderful to have
Beautiful.
these composers to
Yeah.
find more and more and more. But tell me about her.
Very romantic, Scandinavian. I think, gosh, I hope she's Norwegian. I hope I've got the right Scandinavian country. But her music is beautiful, very melodic, accessible. Um, I can definitely tell you some of the pieces I've just loved to play and listen to. Um, Check her out. She's really beautiful, beautiful music. And
And why?
her sister was
Oh,
an artist, Harriet Backer.
mm,
Um, and she's on display. There was at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, and it was just so funny to see her sister's paintings, a lot of music, of Agatha at the piano and whatever. It's a fascinating family. She's worth looking into.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And why? I mean, one thing I'm fascinated by also is that so many composers were celebrated in their lifetime, like Elizabeth Jacquet de la Guerre, or like so many
Yes,
Baroque composers, Isabella Leonarda, or
amazing.
Barbara Strozzi, or all these Baroque composers who then fall into obscurity. But then luckily there are some great early music groups playing it. But I mean, I think this story is, over and over. I don't
Yes.
know what this composer's history is or whether she was celebrated in her lifetime. But
Oh,
um,
I don't know. I think she was. There's also another one that springs to mind. De Gambara, Elizabeth. No, no, no.
yeah, right.
De Gambarini.
I love that you're
What's
taking a book off the shelf rather than looking it up on the internet. I love
Elisabetta de Gambarini?
reach reach for a book on the shelf. Yeah. No, but I know who you're talking about, and I think many of these. I mean,
Yeah.
like Louise Frank was
Oh,
celebrated in her
gorgeous.
lifetime,
Yeah.
and then lost to not lost to history, but
Yes.
definitely not heard in concert halls for a very long time.
You're absolutely right. Same with Clara Schumann. I mean, oh, famous, great music. And it was only, I'd say, in the 90s that
Yes.
suddenly her music was making a comeback.
Yes.
It's
Well,
weird.
even was it the 90s? It was. I felt it was later.
80s? Oh, you
Yeah.
think later?
Yeah.
Maybe. Maybe.
But uh, but yeah, and also some great recordings coming out, and
Yes.
that makes a big difference. But I don't know what it was like when you were growing up, but if you heard about Clara Schumann or Fanny Mendelssohn or any of these composers, that there was this feeling that they were so sad, and that
Oh,
the pictures we had of them were kind of demure and
yes.
tragic in a way. And now,
Yes.
and I never heard music by Clara Schumann or Fanny Mendelssohn.
Nor
That it
did
was
I.
sort of like, oh, this was the sad sister of Felix Mendelssohn.
Exactly.
But that, the story of Queen Victoria choosing songs by Felix Mendelssohn that she especially liked,
Yes.
and it turned out they were actually by Fanny Mendelssohn. And I think that's the greatest test is when you
Mm.
listen to the music itself and don't know the composer, and
Yes.
then
Yes.
surprise, surprise, it's actually a really good piece
Absolutely.
by written by a woman. Yeah.
It's very interesting. When I grew up as a student, I never played any works by women. I can't think. All the way through my studies, even into college and music school. Isn't it strange? But at least it's changing. That's the positive thing. At least it's changing. You know, and
no,
you,
it's changing. It is changing, but it is very strange. My father loved Les Six, and we listened to lots and lots of Poulenc and Mio and Honegger and, you know, all of Les Six, but we never, ever listened to Germaine Taillefer, ever. I never heard of it. Yeah.
Chaminade is another amazing one. Chaminade,
yes. And also celebrated in her lifetime with Chaminade clubs and you know, that she was a big success and then just fell out of fashion. Yeah, but great, you know, wonderful music. And isn't it wonderful that Marc-Andre Hamelin recorded her theme variations?
Absolutely. He's always up for something new. But anyway, you are obviously still finding these gems, aren't you? I mean,
and learning about them from you, and you know, just I love our network of you know, people who say, how about this piece, and sharing scores and sharing resources.
And do you think there'll be another volume on the way of the Futures Female Volume 4, maybe?
I don't think so. I think 3 is enough, but I think I'd definitely love to record some other pieces. And it was the case after that recording project was done, and it was like all 3 recordings I think we did in 10, just, you know, the space of about a week. And so just recorded a lot of music, and then it's always the case where afterwards you find another piece, and what about, you know, what about these other pieces? So
what's the next male composer you'll be learning?
Well, a couple weeks after the Metropolitan Museum, I'm going to the Detroit Institute of Arts to play a Lou Harrison concert, and he's a composer that I feel very close to, and I'm going to do a recording of his work for the Other Minds label, and that's a wonderful series in Detroit. You play in this sort of very beautiful court with a mural by Diego Rivera called Industry in the background. And so very, very inspiring also.
Fantastic.
Lou Harrison, but it's always great to go back to, you know, Bach and Schubert and all the great composers.
Of course. Oh dear. Well, I think we've come to the end here. It's been like 30 minutes. We've been having such a lovely chat. But you know, I hope everybody who's listening who happens to be in the New York City area will take a visit to the Metropolitan Museum on the 8th of March.
Thank you. Well, I
your albums, you know.
Want to congratulate you on all the excellent work you're doing, and it's just wonderful always to hear your podcast and follow you and everything you're doing. So.
Thank you. It's been wonderful meeting you, Sarah. I feel we really know each other, even if we don't. But you know, kindred spirit.
It's a small world. I hope to meet you sometime.
It is a small world. Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And hope to speak to you again soon. And good luck with the marathon recital.
Thank you very much.
That was an excerpt from Germaine Taillefer's Partita for Piano, and it was played by the pianist Sarah Cahill, who performs a marathon recital at the Metropolitan Museum of Art on the 8th of March as part of International Women's Day. Pianist podcasts are free, and a really good way of supporting us is by subscribing to Pianist. Visit our website at pianistmagazine.com and listen to us on YouTube by searching Pianist Magazine.